Well guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Larry, and today I just want to go over a little topic or something I picked up at a yard sale or estate sale. I picked up 4 of these chainsaws, and 2 of them are the same. They're the Poulan Wild, what do you call them here? Wild Things. And then we've got a Mac 4600, 46cc chainsaw. And then we got a Poulan Pro 18-inch, 42cc. Now I'm going to take one of these and probably going to start with the Poulan Wild Thing and see if we can get one of these running. I'll take you to the steps I'm going through to see if we can get it started and get it running and what repairs we're going to need to make on it, but to see if we can make a chainsaw out of it that will work. Now I picked up all 4 of these, including some cases, for $100 at, like I said, an estate sale. One of them got the chain off the bar. It's a lot of issues with them. Primer bulbs are broken. All 4 do have compression, but like I said, we're going to take one of the Wild Things and we're going to start with it and see if we can make something that we can use. Now, they did come with cases, and as you see down below, 3 of them had cases. One of them didn't. Oil's in the bottom of them, gas is in the bottom of them. No telling how long these things sit on the shelves, the owner's property. But again, we're going to grab one and see if we can make a good chainsaw out of it, and then we'll shoot a video of the other one, and then the next one, and then the next one as we go along. So stay tuned, we'll walk you through the process. And just to give you a little insight about myself and our channel, we are into woodworking pretty heavy. We love tinkering with chainsaws. We also have a couple of homemade sawmills, and we have a Harbor Freight sawmill that we cut a lot of wood with. We like to make custom furniture, do odds and ends like that. Let me see if I can get you a shot of the little table we just did here. That's out of salvage wood with the sawmill that we built. And we like playing with furniture, like building things with wood, woodworking, cutting logs, out in the backwoods. We live quite a ways out of town here, so we've got plenty of woodworking area and woodworking things to do. But I appreciate you checking us out here on our channel. Hit the like, subscribe button below if we, giving you any valuable information. And if you subscribe to our channel, you'll get notifications when we put a new video out. We're fixing to shoot some more on a water drilling machine, and also a new sawmill that we're building. But first and foremost, let's get to the part of the video here that we really have this title as, and that's getting one of these old chainsaws running to see if we can make a good one out of 4 of them, and maybe get all 4 of them going. Stay tuned. Well guys, let's get this rodeo on the in progress. Out of the first part of the video you saw that I showed 4 chainsaws here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little Poulan Wild Thing, a 2375, and see if we can revive it. This thing has been sitting on the shelf where we purchased it from the estate sale for God knows how long. So I do know it has plenty of compression, so it's a good possibility to run. We may have to replace the fuel lines. We may have to replace the primer bulb, which you see has a hole in it here. Air filter might be plugged up. We don't know, but we're going to start taking this thing apart and showing you what we find and what we're going to do to try to revive it and get it back in running condition. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab some compressed air with a compressor, and we're going to try to clean it up a little bit before we start on it. See right now that it's missing one of the nuts right here for the bar. And there's the adjuster. Well, let's see what we're going to do first. It looks like we're going to take a screwdriver, or you can take a Torx bit driver and take this bolt here, or screw, this screw here, and then there's another screw right back over here. We'll take this thing out of there. And then we'll pull this actual top cover right over here off of it. Flat tip screwdriver works good, but you can also use a driver. I'm not sure what size it is, but it looks like to be around a 35, maybe a 40, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, we gained access to the top by pulling this cover off. We got a little dust and dirt down inside here on the spark plug. The air filter is just junk. It's not even salvageable. So that will have to be replaced. There's nothing inside here, so it's a good indication maybe we don't have any trash that has gotten inside it. You know, these little chainsaws are not real expensive, but when you pick them up at a yard sale or a estate sale like we did in this situation here, you can spend $10, $15, $20 on it and make you probably a pretty good running little unit. The next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take this housing off of here to gain access to the carburetor itself. Now this will take a 5/16 socket or a 10mm, I believe. I've got a 5/16, which will work fine. I've already taken the liberty of loosening it up. And let's see if we can get those off of there. We'll have to work it out of there because these two little ears here are kind of sitting in there underneath the actual top cover. And make sure you don't misplace your nuts. So there's the carburetor. It's a little wall blow. Let me take some air and blow that off a little bit. Look down inside there. You'll see there's a bunch of pieces of hoses going to the carburetor that are just broke completely off. They got real brittle and dry. Or this cheap gas we got in this world nowadays eats these little hoses up. So there's no way this saw would have been able to pull fuel from the tank and put it to the carburetor without them hoses. So hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to replace these hoses and put a new primer bulb on it. And I'll show you how to get to the primer bulb section of it next without taking the carburetor off first. Flip the saw on its side. Do the same thing. Just 1, 2, 3, and another one up here in the front. 4 more screws. Take those loose. It'd probably make it a lot easier if you had the proper torch driver, torch bit, whatever y'all would technically like to call it. But a screwdriver works fine on this Poulan Wild Thing, this Poulan 2375 Wild Thing. Sometimes you have to work with what you have, and there's no need to go out and buy unnecessary tools unless you have to have one to do the job the correct way, correct? Like I said, keep track of all your screws. You don't want to lose those because you probably have a heck of a time trying to find them or find one to fit in there. Now the cover just comes right off as you see there. The recoil looks fine, a little dusty and dirty. There you see the primer bulb. Now this primer bulb, there's several different ones. This one has the 2 screws that hold it in place. Some of your chainsaws actually have one that just pops and snaps in. It has 2 little ears that spread out, and I'll try to find one of them. I think I have one in the shop to show you the difference in them. But this is the one that has 2 screws in it. To remove the primer bulb, of course, you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver. Sorry about my clumsy hands being in the way, but gotta use them, right? And there is your primer bulb. It is pretty much useless. It's shot. Got a hole right there in the end of it. It would never suck. So now give me a few moments and let me find some fuel line that we can attach and a fuel primer bulb. And let's get back over here. See if I can get this where you can see it a little bit better. The carburetor. Now it's got a little, this piece right here will actually pop up. That way you can pull the choke rod out at the same time. And the carburetor, work it off very gently. And then you've got a rod right here on this side. Just undo that. And there's your carburetor. Now this is a Walbro carburetor, and I'm trying to see, blow it off, see if I can get you a number. We might disassemble this carburetor to see if it's salvageable. If not, we may end up replacing it. But we're going to try to see if it'll run with this whole carburetor. We might take this in loose and check it, and check this in here, check the diaphragms inside there. But this is a, what they call a actual Walbro WT324, and it actually has 024 engraved at the top of it. And I'll try to get that up there closer to the camera, or maybe you can see that. I know that was a question I had, was trying to find the right carburetor before I made this video. and I think I ordered one, but we're going to try to make it run with what we have. We're just going to replace the lines, put some clean fuel in there, and see if we can go anywhere with that. Alright, now I've got the carburetor, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this plate off. I've already taken these 4 little screws out of here with the flat tip screwdriver, and I'm going to pry it loose. There you go. And just kind of look at the diaphragm. Actually, the diaphragm looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave it alone. It doesn't look damaged, but I don't want to, manipulate it into changing to be better. So at this point, we'll just go ahead and put the screws back in it, and we're going to try to start this thing once we get the primer bulb on there and get some fresh fuel in it, and we're going to see if it just might run. If not, then we'll have to continue this video, and after we put another carburetor on it, but we'll have to get one of those ordered. Put these screws right back in there, then we'll move on to the next step. I also thought I would mention, while I've got this thing loose, that inside, a lot of people wonder, how do you adjust the low and high speed on these chainsaws, especially the Poulans. Well, if you look right inside there, there's a little blue and a little red adjuster. I believe the one on the left is actually going to be the slow, and the one on the right, which is the red one, is going to be the high speed. So if it doesn't idle, crank on that little blue one left or right until you get a good idle, and once it runs. But I just thought I'd mention that, because a lot of people don't quite understand how to adjust the idle speed, low and high idle speed. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, there's one other thing I failed to mention you should check at the very beginning, and you'll probably find your problem there if it's been sitting as long as these have. Open your fuel tank gas cap and look down inside there. I'm sure you're going to find a bunch of old gonky smelling fuel in it, if it has any at all. The other thing is, look down inside it and make sure you see the little bitty filter that goes on the end of the line. In this situation here, I've looked down inside it and I can see it. I'll dump it out. I'll probably get gas on the table. Voila. Would you look at that? No fuel line to that, which tells you you're not going to get any fuel through the primer bulb, no fuel to the carburetor at all. So all the fuel line is pretty much deteriorated from the tank filter or the pickup tube filter, whatever you like to call this, all the way through the primer bulb and to the carburetor. There is no line whatsoever. This saw would never run. This has to be repaired. Okay guys, now we get to what's going to be the hardest part of making this entire repair, as it would be with just about any chainsaw out there on the market. As you're well aware, or you don't know, or you may know, the lines have to go back through the housing of the chainsaw, into here. There is a hole, let me see if I can get the screwdriver, with a piece of hose in it right there, and you've got to get that stuff out of there. You see how brittle it is? You've got to get that out of there. And then you've got another section, let's see, it will be right there. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there's two pieces. Hose has to go through there, and hose has to go through here. So you take your little pick, screwdriver, whatever you have, a drill bit, push those out, and then the rough part's going to be getting that line back through those hose, back to the bottom, and getting the screen put on the end of it. Alright guys, the next step is going to be putting new lines back through the housing of the actual chainsaw itself, to the primer bulb, and of course all the other lines going to the carb. What you'll want to do is you'll want to take your line, your fuel line, and cut it at an angle as much as you can. Really, this is not even enough. You need to cut more angle to it, where you're only going to have half that amount of line going through this hole, as you see here. Now, for the purpose of video, I wasn't able to show that. It's very, very difficult, and this is where you're going to start cussing, calling names, and thinking your wife's cheating on you and everything else, because this is very difficult to do. Don't make it any harder than you have to. Once you cut that tip on that line like that at an angle, slide that half down inside there, get you some pliers like these right here, with a 45 on them, and you'll have to get down inside that tank and grab that line. And at the same time, you may have somebody else coming over here, or do it like I did, just stick the pliers through there and then put some WD-40 or some kind of lubum on that line right there. As you're pulling it in the tank, you'll pull about a ½ inch each time and kind of push it and work it up here while you're pulling it, you know, from the hole through here in this hole in the tank till you get it out where you need it. Now you won't need but about a ½ inch of line sticking out of this, because this is actually going to be the return line, and this is going to be feeding the carburetor on the opposite side. So the longer nipple on the primer bulb is normally the return line. So this line here is going back to the gas tank. It is the return fuel. So like I said, didn't get the video recorded of that. It's pretty difficult to do, but like I said, main thing is get you some good pliers and keep this line slicked up a little bit, so it makes it a little easier to pull back down inside there. Alright, next we're going to put the carburetor back in place. What we're going to do is, carburetor goes up like this, the choke pull handle goes over here on this side. It's got a little boot that slides down in here. The top part of this where it says Wabro is the fuel pump side, so the line that is coming from the tank, where you see I put this filter on, this line in the bottom of it, going through the tank, coming out of the top on the left hand side of the saw. If you're facing, you know, the chainsaw bars in front of you to the left, will go up here on the top. Just like, we'll get it on there, just like so. I know a lot of people get these lines crossed up, and that does create some issues. Now go ahead and put your carburetor back in place. Make sure the gasket is still good. In this situation here, we wouldn't have one to replace it with anyway, so we'd have to use what we got. Keep your lines out of the way. You may have to reroute them. You see in this situation here, well, we'll be fine there. Put your little boot down in there like so. Oh, pull the choke handle out of there. Kill switch move. Make sure it sits down in there properly. And then, of course, this piece has to go down in there like so. There we go. Now your carburetor is back in place, and your choke works. Make sure, like I said, you keep these hoses out of the way of that choke. You don't want them, I may have to reroute them a little bit later. But for the purpose of the video, I just want to show you where the lines go. Pull this out of here now. I'm going to decide to run this one underneath there. And put your carburetor right back in place. And the other line is going to go on the bottom. I've actually made these lines just a little too long. I can go back and cut those off here in a minute. Better to have too much than not enough. There we go. And you see that one choke is pushing that one line, so it'd be to my advantage to take this primer bulb off and cut it shorter instead of having to go back in the tank and cutting it off. But for testing purposes, we're going to leave it like that right now. You can go back and assemble the rest of your stuff that you took apart earlier, the same process you took it apart with, the same way you took it apart. Correct terminology there, I guess you could say. And we'll continue with the rebuild, reassembly. Well guys, I had to backtrack a little bit there. I think I missed a step and got ahead of myself. Make sure that you put that linkage rod back in there before you put this carburetor back on, because you're not going to get that linkage rod back in there once you put that carburetor in place. It's almost impossible. Yeah, that was a screw up, me missing part of the step of the installation. But anyhow, friendly reminder, don't make a mistake like I did. Make sure you got the carburetor linkage back in place before you assemble the carburetor and the breather, air filter breather, and everything else that goes with it. Let's see if we got any magic. I'm going to hit that primer bulb. working so far it's cold, but well, she started and ran pretty good, even with the old carburetor. Now let's see what happens once we try to restart it. There's no primer bulb, no nothing. Well guys, all she needs now is a new air filter, of course. Put the top cover back in place, which I don't think I need to show y'all that part of the video. It's pretty self-explanatory, you know, after you put your air filter back in place, of course. Set that right back down on there, set it down in place, and put your screws 1, 2, and 3 back in it. Now we got a chainsaw that we can use. Guys, I really appreciate y'all watching this video, and we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like, subscribe button. Hope we've given you some knowledge here. Post your comments and suggestions down below. We'll do our best to answer them, normally within 24 hours, because we're kind of semi-retired, so we've got a lot of time on our hands tinkering with projects like this. Next one's going to be that old Mac I showed you at the beginning of the video probably, and then we might tackle that old home light, see if we can get it running. Again guys, thanks for watching. Hope this helped you.